Good day. Today's presentation takes a financial look at a university on Long Island in order to get some sense of what funding arrangements are typically for a higher ed institution. The institution we look at today is Adelphi University, and the data that we're going to be sourcing our discussion from are two public sources. One is ProPublica and the other is GuideStar. These are organizations that publish information and which is information that is available to the public. In other words, these are not sensitive information or information that transgresses any rules for the organization involved. Adelphi University, as I said, is a private university on Long Island. It is one of the larger institutions of its kind in New York, certainly in the Long Island area of the state. And it is quite significant in terms of its market position. As you know, there are institutions that are of a public nature and others are privately controlled. Adelphi is a privately controlled institution. It's been around since 1927. It has a budget of about 470, in excess of $470 million. Quite a significant outlay, especially for a private institution. The principal revenue items that higher ed institutions are categorized are grants and contracts, philanthropic sources, auxiliary enterprises, tuition and fees, and investment contracts. These, along with government sources, are the main revenue items that are typically reflected on the revenue side of higher ed institutions. On the revenue side, much of these allocations go into paying salaries. Instruction typically is the umbrella under which these fall under. So instruction for faculty. You have also salaries for administrative staff. You have institutional support, auxiliary outlays, and of course student expenses. These expense categories are what are typically reflected on the expense side of higher ed institutions. And clearly the picture is completed by looking at the balance sheet, assets and liability section. A characteristic of private institutions is that their revenues come largely from tuition and fees. And when you look at the financial picture of Adelphi as a private institution, the numbers reflect that position. Tuition and fees for Adelphi is over $160 million in the year 2016, out of an entire revenue stream of $199 million. Other significant contributors to this revenue picture were grants and contracts, which was over $4.5 million, from philanthropic sources, over nearly $4 million, $3.7 million to be exact, were obtained. Auxiliary enterprises, which are supporting revenue or ancillary revenue streams that the institution attracts, was $14 million in Adelphi's case. And it also had gains from investment income of $9.4 million. On the expense side, instructions accounted for $91.4 million. Research accounted for $8.3 million. Academic support, $21.4 million. Student services for $30.7 million. Institutional support, $30.2 million. And auxiliary expenses accounted for $14.3 million, for a total picture of, in terms of financial expenses, of $196 million, which was matched against total revenue of $199 million. So the institution actually had a surplus of approximately $2 million in the financial year 2016. As I said earlier on, the total balance sheet for 2016 was $473.2 million, which was up from $467.4 million the year before, that being 2015. The budgets for a higher ed institution, in fact, for all institutions, gives a financial synopsis of the organization at a point in time. But that point in time is a reflection of where the organization is coming from historically, and also where it is positioned to go in the future. Budgets are not developed without context. Certainly the economic and political environment in which a budget is prepared are highly influential factors on how the numbers are constructed. Budgetary allocations are very competitively derived, in the sense that there are always competing interests for these funds. So whatever is finally reflected as line items in the budget is certainly reflective of the priorities and that exist, and as well as the mission that the institution is intended to accomplish. Higher ed organizations generally drive income from 5 main sources. And as I said earlier, these are government aid, grants and contracts, philanthropy, auxiliary enterprises, and tuition and fees. How budgets are developed are influenced by a number of different techniques and philosophies. In higher ed institutions, a typical or common practice is to have budgets developed on what is called fund accounting basis. In this stream, budgets are developed based on the allocation of funds that have been committed, and these are typically from different sources. I'll quickly mention some of the others. You have zero budgeting budgets that are prepared by funding, incentive funding mechanisms, and you also have what are called resource management or profit centers is another accounting method by which budgets are developed. I will conclude there. For video highlights of this presentation, you can see my video, which is available on YouTube. Thank you.